Social media. We as a society have finally reached the pinnacle of being more interconnected than ever on these platforms. No more loneliness, no more isolation, no more problems, all with an endless supply of knowledge, inspiration, and creativity. Right? No, not really. While people seem to be noticing how out of touch these platforms and their overlords have become, there is one population that has felt totally forgotten and frustrated for years: the artists. If you're an artist in this day and age, like me, looking around social media and thinking, gee, something feels off. Well, that's been the case for a while now. It feels like social media is fighting against us, where it's no longer about the art, following other like-minded creators, or building a community together. Instead, it's about pumping out more content as quickly as possible, keeping up with algorithms that seem to change every month, having our feeds be bombarded by advertisements and things we were never interested in, and quitting your full-time job to keep up with your unrealistic posting schedules that you promised yourself last week that you were going to follow. But I'm not here to talk about some secret on how to get more likes, followers, or beat the algorithm, as I'm obviously not an expert on growing a social media following, nor do I hold any forbidden knowledge behind a paywall in a video going over redundant growth strategies, as this hyperfixation on numbers doesn't benefit artists. We signed up to be artists. We didn't sign up to also be a videographer, photographer, marketing manager, editor, and 10 other jobs to just manage one account. But that's not the main issue here. We need to focus more on our art and nurture our creativity. You know, the thing that artists are supposed to do. As investing so much time in social media has become exhausting, to the point where it ends up sapping our creativity. We need to bring the art back to the artist. But how exactly is social media impacting our creativity? Could relying more on social media be harming us? And if that's the case, is there even a way we can stop it? Or is it too late? Well, fear not, my fellow creative, for I am here to guide you along the way by diving deeper into why social media is killing your creativity and what we as artists can do to take it back. Social media is after more than just your money and scraping your content to train AI, it's really after your time. Time is your most precious resource, and every platform, company, and brand knows that, because without your time, they can't exist. So if we know that much, why are we still getting distracted? Because social media is designed to be that way. As long as you are on the platform engaging with all of the content on there, social media is doing its job. That's the problem though. It does it too well by serving as a distraction from what we actually should be doing. In this instance, creating. Time is such a finite resource, and how we spend it affects how we live our lives. Today, we are going to talk about one of the biggest problems that is driving social media to kill our creativity: doom scrolling. This is one of the many problems with social media, and believe me, there could be a much longer video taking a further deep dive into this. So we're just going to focus on this topic. I feel like when it comes to discussing doom scrolling online, it's like one of those words that people talk about a lot with how bad it is, but there's not as much discussion on why it's bad. An article from Harvard Medical School goes over the dangers of doom scrolling. What makes doom scrolling concerning are the unfortunate side effects that come along with it. Some of these side effects are alarming and can include headaches, muscle tension, neck and shoulder pain, low appetite, difficulty sleeping, and even elevated blood pressure. In 2023, a research review analyzed 3 separate studies involving 1,200 adults and suggested that doom scrolling is linked to worse mental well-being and life satisfaction. As if we could use more of that. To add more insult to injury, another study in 2024, consisting of 800 adults, also suggested that doom scrolling creates greater levels of existential anxiety, which is described as a feeling of dread or panic that arises when we confront the limitations of our existence. Yeah, no thanks. If you still aren't convinced about the dangers of doom scrolling, there is a real biological phenomenon that has been referred to as popcorn brain. This explains the feeling of your brain popping because you're being overstimulated online. This makes it much harder to engage with the real world because it moves at a much slower pace. This all explains why it's difficult for us to slow down. It's like getting down from a high off of experiencing new things all the time. We need to find a way to redirect our attention to where we don't feel the need to doom scroll. And I think the answer is very simple. For my solution, I propose a more unconventional approach to combat the distraction that comes from doom scrolling. My solution is a project. This project can be anything, whether it's a challenge where you want to get better at a specific subject, or maybe you're trying to build your own fantastical world, a short film, a video game, a comic, whatever it may be. It's time to dust off those ideas you've had lingering in your head and start bringing them out into the real world. The reason I bring up a project is because we need to ensure that our creativity has purpose, the opposite of what doomscrolling and social media achieves. When we have intent in our work, we leave little to no room for distraction. Doomscrolling is mindless and hijacks your attention, trying to keep you occupied without you putting too much thought into why you've spent the last few hours watching cat videos. Okay, so for my project, I decided to go with fantasy world building, consisting of a world of knights. I'm drawing from some inspiration from my childhood, from when I was younger, as I was obsessed with the fantasy and superhero genres. This is where we can really start to let our imaginations run a little wild. We can also set any kind of clear goals and limitations for your project that can help you focus on what you were trying to achieve. We can even start to alter terms and definitions based on what kind of a world we are trying to build. Let's look at the term knight. When you heard this word, you most likely thought about the typical medieval one with armor and a sword. Although I've decided to go with a more traditional type of knight in terms of the occupation, it doesn't have to be limited. Just take a look at some examples from mainstream media with different characters, like the Dark Knight, Hollow Knight, M. Knight. I'm trying to do some quick armor sketches, helmets, and playing around with proportions and not sticking too close to references, because I think this is kind of an easy way to explore different designs before diving into a world building project. And here I'm just trying to play around with forms and experiment a little bit just to see where it takes me. Again, I'm not being too precious with these because this is just a warm up and I'm trying to get more familiar with the shapes and also just playing around and pushing around proportions and seeing how I can explore further designs. I definitely do need to practice more. Projects can be complicated, but they don't have to be. The best way to learn how to do anything in this world is to do the actual thing. When you have your energy and effort focused on a goal with a specific output, especially when it comes to a project, you start to focus more on the work and finessing your craft rather than thinking about how many likes it's going to get on social media. When we are preoccupied with our craft, we no longer care as much about these metrics. We should be enjoying the process. Because one thing that I think a lot of us tend to forget is that art is supposed to be fun. The way you build worlds could be totally different. Maybe you start with environments, props, food, fashion. Just start how you want, but make sure to stick to it. Just don't spend forever working on your project. I decided to stick with helmets specifically because I feel like it's a lot easier to explore and play around with shapes and exaggerating the proportions, as it kind of reminds me of experimenting with facial proportions. I also reduced the opacity because I wanted to focus more on the overall shape and silhouette of the helmets rather than getting caught up in the details, although you'll see me struggle a little bit with that. I'm just going through each of these helmets by trying to not just get familiar with how they fit and look, but also how I can interpret them from my own view. If you're getting stuck in a subject that isn't quite landing with you, focusing on proportions and shapes is a great way to get familiar with the subject. When working on a project consists of something you aren't familiar with, I like to start cranking out quick studies like this. As for me, the goal is to get familiar through mileage, as I don't want to take too much time with these because I want to be aware of how much time I'm spending. The more you repeat these iteration studies, the more familiar you'll get with drawing your subject on the fly. Focusing on these quick studies also takes a lot of pressure off, as I don't have to post this on social media because these are just messy studies for myself and my project. In this world building project of mine, I'm starting at the base level and will eventually branch out into other aspects like a full suit of armor, then different types of armor, then posing, swords, other weapons. I'm not sure where that's going to lead exactly, but the whole genre of knights can be expanded in so many different ways, so I have plenty of options to explore. In this last part, I tried my hand to go for a fully suited knight in a stylized way, as I personally tend to gravitate towards exaggerating shapes and proportions over realism. I feel like this was overall a decent base to start with, but I'll definitely be practicing and exploring more when it comes to armor. While we talked about one of the big downsides of social media and doom scrolling, there certainly are upsides to it, but the bottom line is to just be aware of how much time you're spending on it. The whole point of having a project is to have purpose, and if we are concerned about fulfilling that purpose, we're going to be more concerned about how we spend our time. So what do y'all think of my studies? Do you want to see more of my project? What project are you working on and wanting to start? Let me know down in the comments and what else you'd like to see, and make sure to subscribe. Take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.